I'm Mike Costello, and I'm here with Dr. Freelander, and today we'd like to talk about transformation of mind. In New Thought metaphysical philosophy, we believe that we live in our minds and not in the world, that the way that we respond to circumstances and situations, the way that we think about them, determines the quality of our life. And one of the magnificent things about mind is that we always have the ability to transform our way of thinking, don't we, Iris?
Yes, indeed we do. And some people will say, oh, thank goodness I can change my mind and not be criticized. And that's one of the fears that we have in life, is that if we do change our mind, people are going to be complaining. But why not change our minds? That's what life is all about, is changing. And we know that change is inevitable. And so we can change our minds anytime we like and change our pattern, change our custom, change whatever we wish, knowing then that we have control of changing instead of that life will just swiftly sweep us along.
Yeah, I think we do have this hesitancy to change, or we view it so often as a failure. And so people will often talk about the fact that that so-and-so has changed, and that's not a bad thing at all. And thank heavens we're all changing all of the time. And so why wouldn't we change our way of thinking? And of course, as we change our way of thinking, we can actually change the way that we're responding to the circumstances and situations of life. And of course, what's more changing than everyone's life? And
Yes, and we can expect that will happen in our lives, and it will happen to the people we love, the people with whom we work, the people with whom we associate, the people whom we just barely know. And then we wouldn't be critical, would we, if we just know that these changes are going to be coming about, and we can exalt that people enjoy change and hope that they do enjoy the changes that come into their lives. And those changes come through, as our title is, the transformative method of our mind and how we use our mind to transform whatever we wish to change in our lives.
right, as we transform our thinking, I'm thinking now of how often we talk to people in counseling and at the church and in our private work, how often it is that people are feeling that life just happens and that they have no control, that they have no ability to participate, and that things just happen. Well, in fact, things do just happen, but the way that we think is always totally and completely up to us. And so often we think in a very unconscious way or a semi-conscious way. And one of the examples that I give often when I lecture, as you know, is you will often say to people that most of us came to this meeting driving a car while we were unconscious, because we don't think about the way that our minds operate. We don't even think about some of the things that we do. But the fact is that our minds do operate in a variety of ways. And for virtually all of us, our minds operate either in a positive way or in a negative way, meaning we see things in a positive light or we see things in a negative light. And it's normal for us to see some things in both ways and not to have necessarily a Pollyanna view of life. But we need to take some time, use some time for introspection and self-examination and determine whether or not our way of thinking is more negative than positive. And if our way of thinking, if the dynamic of our mind tends to be pessimistic and judgmental and negative and defeated and depressed, then we need to look at whether or not it isn't appropriate to change. And of course, I'm not saying one should change, although I would certainly believe that's probably prudent. But one of the things that we do often, and you and I both, is give people the option of doing what they want to do. So if people are happy being negative and suffering through life, we would hope that they would transform their way of thinking. But if we would just look at the way that our minds operate, and if we do see ourselves moving in this negative cycle, be aware of that and be committed to changing or transforming our mind and our way of thinking.
Yes, and we can't really judge how happy other people are in their station in life and where they put themselves in life, because some people really enjoy being moody. And that was brought home to me years ago when there was a child that I was responsible for, and the psychologist said, well, don't try and put yourself in her place, because if she wanted to be different, she would be different. if she wanted people to really enjoy her company, she would be more congenial. And so I think that's we can't put ourselves in other people's places. But if they ask for help, then we can give it. And again, what you and I do is we show people their options. And a lot of people, when they're despondent, they think they have no option in life. That whatever's causing the problem is all they have, and they have to work from there. And if that's fallen apart, then they don't have anywhere to go. Well, that's not true, because we always have options, and we always have various options. And sometimes we just don't think that we do.
And as we have options, or we have the awareness of options, or the lack of the awareness of options, we need to invite ourselves always, when we face challenges and difficulties, to remind ourselves about the fact that we do indeed have options. And we have options in terms of how we feel about circumstances. We have options in terms of how much control we give to others, in the control over which they have on, or the control that they have on our lives, and whether or not we're responding from a center of integrity and personal responsibility, or whether we're really responding because we're responding to the way that we think people are seeing us, or the expectations of others.
Yes. And when we see someone who's very despondent and down, if very often, just by not acknowledging that they're despondent and down, but to just pick up on the positive aspect of their life and help them, and I don't mean preach at them, but to just like let them see that we see something great and glorious in their life, when all they can see is the despondency. And very often that makes all the difference in the world to people, because we've all had people, and I'm sure those who are listening to us and you and I have had people say, I'll always remember what you said. And we never remember what that was that we said, because we're prompted, each of us are prompted, everyone is prompted, to say what the other person needs to hear very often. And so it would behoove us to listen to others when they speak, and also to be thoughtful in how we lift other people. So if we're just very, very positive, and I don't mean Pollyanna positive, then the other person can see hope in the gloom.
And as we do that, we model a positive life. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking about how we need to do that for young people and children, but we need to do that for those around us too. And especially those of us who do have a very positive outlook in life. It's easy for us to respond in kind to the environment in which we find ourselves. And so often, and I think now about world events and circumstances and situations, often people will see the very negative aspects of world conditions, and then those around them begin to share in that concept and that idea. And certainly there are challenges and difficulties, there's no question about that, and we don't want to minimize those. But we do know that as we allow ourselves to become a part and party of a negative vibration or a negative dynamic of mind, that we simply feed that negative experience for the other person. And your example is a very good one. And it isn't to preach at people, and it isn't to say, oh, change your way of thinking,
Yeah.
but it is the way that we respond to people and to the environment and to their responses to life. And very often people will say, isn't something terrible? And of course, our response often is, yes, it is, and then off we go.
Yeah.
And so our response instead could be that, well, it's not so bad. I see it this way. And so we begin to build a positive vibration and a positive response to circumstance and situation.
Yes, and I think that one thing that's happening in our world today, which is wonderful in our country, is that older people stay more productive. It's interesting how so many people have retired, and yet they always say, I'm busier than I've ever been before in my life. I don't know how I managed to do what I did when I was working, because I stay busy full time. And I think that's a very positive aspect in our society, don't you?
Absolutely. Staying active, staying busy, and staying positive. And that contributes to a sense of well-being, and it contributes to physical health as well, doesn't it?
Indeed, indeed, because our bodies deteriorate when we're moody, and there's lots of proof of that. It's not just something that we say, and also meditation helps a great deal to calm the body and to create the endorphins. And the endorphin level rises when we're happy and drops when we're not. And what is it they call? There's a book written by actually some friends of mine who are nurses named Beck, B-E-C-K, James and Deepa Beck, and they called the book The Pleasure Connection. And they talked about the endorphins in the body. And when we are happy, the endorphin level rises. And when we're not, then it's the opposite. And it's a wonderful thing to know that we can gauge that. And at the Edgar Cayce Foundation in Virginia Beach, they found that 30 seconds of meditation changed the endorphin level in the body. So it would behoove all of us to really consciously, deliberately do those things that help to keep us happy. And just getting out in the fresh air sometime is just the ticket. It's just what we need. And just to go for a walk, even if it's 10 minutes, and you don't have to walk for an hour or for 3 hours. Just walk as much as you feel like walking, but just get out and move your body. Take your body for a walk. Take your body out of the house. And it makes all the difference. And sometimes just the sunlight makes a difference. And some people keep their houses so dark and gloomy, and some have to. But it's not a good idea to live in darkness all the time, because the light activates the hormonal level in the body.
Our mind, and of course we know a lot about mind, body, spirit connection. We spend a lot of time talking about that, and so do a lot of other people. But we know now so much about the connection between the mind and the body, and that transformation of our mind and our way of thinking translates into a healthy body. Healthy mind and a healthy thought process creates a healthier body. And we know that that connection is a reality and a truth.
Yes, and we have to sometimes make a plan and then work the plan. And that's another thing about, I mentioned earlier about the older population are changing their habits. Well, that's true that they're changing their eating habits and they're changing they're exercising more. And I think that's one reason they're able to get out and do things more after they're older, because they keep their bodies in better condition. And also, therefore, then the mind is transformed daily as we go about life in that positive fashion.
That transforming the way that we think and transforming the quality of our life, for a lot of people, is a constant battle. And for some, it's easier than others. But one of the things that we know is that as people become positive, as they begin to become less negative and more positive, it becomes easier and easier for them to accomplish the kinds of things that we're talking about.
Yes, that's true. And then we have that American work ethic. And the American work ethic, to me, needs to go down the drain, because it forced everyone to think they have to be busy all the time. They have to be productive all the time. They have to be doing something. And sometimes people would just make chores for themselves so they would feel that their life is worthwhile. Just to sit on a park bench or sit in a bench in your own backyard, just daydreaming and looking out at life is worth everything in the world. And just to allow children to just be, I think I have a tendency these days to have our children stay busy all the time, and they don't have time to daydream. They don't have time to just be. And it's a good idea for every human being to have time just to be. And just to be, if they just want to be thinking about something, fine, or if they don't want to think, fine.
Absolutely. We need these quiet times. We need a lot more quiet time. We'd like to pause at this point in the program and offer you the opportunity to receive some literature so that you can continue to study the ideas and concepts we're sharing with you.
We would like to offer you the opportunity to receive one of these free booklets to further your understanding of the New Thought message of confident living. Each month we will feature a different booklet, which will be mailed to you free and postage paid. Simply address your request to Confident Living at P.O. Box 7726, Long Beach, California, 90807.
We do need to have time to simply be calm and quiet, don't we? And for so many people, that's an almost impossibility. I know a lot of us have busy lives, but the fact is that many people aren't comfortable being quiet. Why is that, Iris?
Well, it's because, again, I think it's the American work ethic. They think they have to be busy, have to be doing something. And another thing, there's something inside people's head that it's like a chatterbox. And if that's not moving and chattering, they think I think there are lots of psychologists who define that. And they say, and they feel that people think they're not living if they're not making a noise, if there's not a noise around them. And they haven't learned the joy and the pleasure of just serenity, of quietness. But they can use the transformative mind to transform their own minds, so to change their way of thinking and to know that it is a wonderful aspect of life to just be, to think, to have quietness, and perhaps soft music, but not loud music. And we don't need the radio and TV on all the time, or either or. We need time for quietness to attune ourselves to Creator God. And I'm not. Of course, you and I advocate meditation always, but I'm talking about just to attune ourselves periodically to Creator God. And when we do, it pays wonderful dividends, because then our mind is not scattered and we're able to be serene. And as we're serene, we're able to just be ourself and let that inner aspect of our being shine through. And when it does, you can tell a difference in people if they're overly animated or if they're just excited about something.
And for so many people, even in our busy lives, they would say, well, I don't have time to be quiet. Well, in fact, we can even in the midst of a conflict, we can begin to take a few deep breaths and we can transform our minds and moving into a quiet place. I think it can be done in the midst of chaos and difficulty. The other way that it can be done is it can be done in solitude. And so I think we do need these refreshing periods of time, and we need to be willing to be alone with ourselves, either when we're with people or when we're not with people, whatever the convenience is. I know a mother of 5 somewhere is going to say to us, I'm never alone. But even a mother of 5 is able to take a few deep breaths in the midst of the time that the children are running around and go into a quiet place within herself if she's not able to go elsewhere. But I think whatever it is that we do, to be able to, as you said, place our minds in neutral and to release the cares and concerns and to transform our way of thinking. In the best of all circumstances, it is to take some time of solitude. And in the very beginning of the program, you made mention of simply sitting somewhere, in our backyard or in our living room if we need to, inside, but outside's better. And sit quietly and just be. And so often we aren't able to do that. We choose not to do that. And we certainly have time to do all of the other things that we do. And so if we wanted a little solitude, most of us can find it.
We can find it. And again, we can look to the children and see, because I've seen children just sit and not despondent, but just sit and just enjoy being. And as you know, I spend a lot of time with my little grandson, and he's 2 years old, and he knows how to sit. And he takes me on a tour of the backyard, and then we end up at a bench, and he sits, so he climbs up on the bench, and he says, up, to me, for me to sit there, and then he just sits. And he doesn't do anything. He just sits and just looks so happy. He puts his hands like this and puts his legs a certain way, and then he just he's like so happy looking out at the world. Again, we can take a ticket from children and see how they enjoy life, and then we can do the same. But more than that, it's in our mind. If we think we have to stay busy, if we think life is dealing us a tough blow, whatever we think happens in our lives. And if we think life is wonderful, then it's wonderful. And we can create beauty around us. And a lot of people would say, well, I don't have yard space. I don't have space in my house. We can always create beauty to us what we find to be beautiful, and dare to use what we find to be beautiful, and make our environment be lovely. If it's just one room, then make that one room be lovely. And so we can all do that, but very often we put yes but too often, don't we?
We do. And we fail to realize that our mind and our thought processes are creating our environment. One of the things we say in our movement is thoughts in mind create after their kind. And so if you have a confused thought, a confused mind, if it's always busy, if it's always negative, whatever it is, that's going to be the outpicturing, and that's a term that we use as well. That's going to be the outpicturing of your life. And there is a theory, and of course it's a theory, but it has to do with the fact that our minds are projecting onto the screen of life all of the time. And I think that's very, very true. And so we must take responsibility for the fact that we are projecting and creating life based upon the way that we think and the dynamic of our mind. And we're also affecting all of those around us. We're affecting our family and our circle, our household circle, our children, our spouses. We're affecting those in the workplace, and we're affecting all of those around us. And this issue of vibratory thought, and we don't have a lot of time left, and that's a whole separate program, and we've talked about it before. But thought creates vibration, and that vibration is sent out from us, and it's perceived by those around us. And we are indeed creating and projecting all of the time thought, and those thoughts are becoming things. And thought manifests into the reality of life. And so we need to understand that as we transform our way of thinking, as we transform our minds, we are indeed transforming our world, but we are transforming the world of others as well.
Yes, because as you said, the vibration extends all around us. And so wherever we put our minds and wherever we put calmness and serenity, then other people pick that up, and we pick it up from other people too. But there's a way that we can protect ourselves from the negative energies and the discordant vibrations. We can just put our hand over our solar plexus chakra and say whatever makes us feel that we're doing, like peace be still, or may the light of the living Christ protect me. But whatever does it for us, then that's what we need to say. But we're affirming that our solar plexus chakra is not going to be affected by the vibrations around us. And that's a very wonderful thing for people to know. And it's a wonderful thing to do before we enter a room where someone is ill. And so we're also quieting our own vibrations so that we're not carrying discordant energies into that sick room. So it goes both ways, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And we're able to do that. We're able to calm our minds. We're able to center our way of thinking. And as we do, then we impact ourselves and we impact those around us in so many marvelous or negative ways.
Yes, and I'd like to say to our audience that they have control of their own lives. They might think they don't, but if they think they don't, then look to see why they think that, and see all the possibilities around them, see what their options are. Because we all get depressed, we all fall into a negative way of thinking, and we all become hopeless. We think life is not filled with hope at all, when there's all the hope in the world for everyone. It depends on that individual transforming their own mind.
Absolutely. And I'm just thinking as you're talking, how often people will say to me about the two of us and about other positive people, they'll say, well, you don't understand because your life is so perfect. Well, our lives are not so perfect from the standpoint of avoiding difficulty or challenge or any of the things that other people have. But the way that we respond to the circumstances and situations and the life transforming and the mind transforming ideas that we share with people are truly empowering and do create the ability for people to have peaceful lives, to not be in confusion all of the time, to not be sick all of the time. And if we are sick, to bear that sickness in a totally different way because of the way that our minds are operating within the context of where we are in life. And it doesn't matter where we are in life. It doesn't matter whether we're happy or sad, whether we're glad or mad, wherever we are is okay. But the way that we think and the dynamic of our mind will determine the quality of that experience for ourselves, and it will reflect outward and be absorbed and shared with other people. And one of the things, just before time gets away, so often as people talk to us, they say, well, you always have so much time and you always have so much energy. Well, in fact, it is restful, isn't it, when we have this way of thinking?
Yes, it is. And we don't get as tired. And when we allow ourselves to get bogged down, then we do get far more tired. I know my husband said to me once years ago, you never get tired because you go at your own pace. And I thought, I had to give some thought to that and exactly what he meant. Because if we go at our own pace, we can speed it up, or we can slow it down according to the amount of time we have and what we're doing and how much we enjoy doing it. But there are so many ways we can make positive changes in our lives. We just have to look at our lives and see what we want, and then make our plan and work that plan.
But we need to change, don't we? And
Yes.
that was how we started the program. And in the
Yeah.
last couple of minutes that we have, we need to change our minds, and we need to be open to new ideas and new ways of thinking. And I think about Mr. Fillmore, the founder of Unity, who's the movement that we're a part of. And one time a student of his was listening to him lecture in his later life and said, well, Mr. Fillmore, what you just said is in total contradiction to what you wrote 30 years ago. How can that be? And he said, well, young man, the answer is very simple. I've changed my mind. And there was nothing wrong with that. And Mr. Fillmore was able, without any problem or without any hesitation or without any apology, to say he had changed his mind. And so we need to change our minds, and we need to change our lives. We need to change our directions as we're guided and directed. And of course, if we're guided and directed in positive and affirming ways, why not? And why not be willing to change? Why not be willing to change our way of thinking, to change our minds, and to change our lives?
And to give everyone else that same rare privilege of allowing them freely to change their mind. Because if everyone gave everyone else freedom and didn't put the judgment on them, then life would be so much more easy, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. If we let go of judgment, if we embrace tolerance, if we love one another, if we have a peaceful state of consciousness and mind, and we're allowing ourselves to be transformed by our daily lives in a positive and affirmative way, then great and wonderful things can happen to every one of us. And we hope that the ideas and concepts that we've shared with you tonight have been helpful and useful, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Mike and Iris would like to extend a cordial invitation for you to join them this Sunday morning at 11 a.m. for our weekly celebration service at the beautiful Seaport Marina Hotel at the corner of Pacific Coast Highway and 2nd Street, adjacent to the Marina Pacifica and Marketplace shopping centers. There will be a guided meditation, prayers, spirited music, and a dynamic, life-changing New Thought message. Please join us this Sunday. You will be warmly welcomed into the company of like-minded, positive, and uplifting people. And remember, whatever your dream, whatever your vision, you can attain it through confident living.